So some key areas I want to focus on here. All too often, as I say on the screen here, when a large-scale project is nearing its end, the question, what shall we do about the sustainability of this effort, is asked. And that is the worst time to ask that question. What we want to do, if you think back over time when quality management was just coming on the horizon and people were pushing the idea that quality needs to be planned in rather than checked later, it's the same thing with sustainability and with change management. In order for our projects to be sustainable long term, the organizational change management needs to be addressed as early on as possible. So for example, first of all, prior to the actual project kickoff, prior to writing a project charter, we need to go back in time to when was the discussion started for this initiative. So we could look at initial business requirements that were developed, any early formal investigation as a probable initiative to move forward, any formal business case that was developed, user requirements maybe that were developed depending on the type of project. So that's prior to an actual project kicking off typically, but those those places should have addressed, and we should be encouraging people to address these sustainability needs, change management needs way back before the project life cycle. So moving on, ensuring results. How do you know if your change initiative will yield sustainable results? Easier said than done, but we need to pay attention to a few key elements, 3 here in particular. The first one being evidence of sustainable change. So how do you assess whether you have evidence of sustainable change within your project? Secondly, why sustainability can be so elusive in the real world. So let's take a look at that. And lastly, designing conditions for sustainability as we move forward. So first of all, evidence of sustainability in your change. There's 4 key areas I want to look at. One is direction. Do we have a set direction, and is everyone on our change initiative and all of our support groups and our community groups, are they moving in the same direction? Often the problem is we don't even know what direction we're moving in, or some people do and some people don't, and we have people moving in disparate directions. So we need the concerted energy towards one direction. Secondly, energy. One of the things that commonly happens on many projects is we start off with a bang, we have a lot of energy, and then we lose that energy at some point in time, and the project falls away. There may be delays. We may not hear about what's going on in the project for a while, and we lose the energy. Third, distributed leadership. Do we have leadership at all levels, and or at least at the appropriate levels within the organization to support our project moving forward? And fourthly, appropriate mobilization of leadership. So let's take a look at each of these individually as we come to the end of our webinar. Firstly, direction. The general path forward with appropriate boundaries. So there are many things to consider here. One is, do we really know where we're going? Do we have a clear goal, list of objectives, set deliverables, and do those things align right back up to the high-level business requirements? So do we have a congruency across those? And is everybody within our project management community aware of that direction? Are they committed to the direction, and do we have buy-in? So some key areas there. Belief that the change effort has legitimacy. Is there a breakdown there, or do people still buy in? We need cross-functional and multi-stakeholder interests that are acknowledged and addressed for the good of the whole moving forward. That is easier said than done. So we need a collaborative effort, and we need a culture within our organization that enables us to get disparate groups to work together. And we need the organization to not cling to previously designed and implemented solutions. So they're not holding on to the past. They're willing to move forward in the direction we want to move in. Next, energy. Do we have the energy to move forward? Now, what often happens here, like I mentioned earlier, is we often have the energy at the beginning, but somewhere after the launch and after all the excitement and after the party, we lose energy, we lose momentum, and it trails off. The reality is, in most organizations today, it's very seldom that people are working on one initiative or one project. They're often working on anywhere from 3 to 15 different initiatives. In addition to that, most people are working with remote teams. So you aren't sitting around a table with 7 other people where you come together every day and you have a coffee or a latte and we talk about what we're doing, and we talk about what's working well and what we need to change. You're working with people you don't see. If you don't hear from them and you don't see them, you may forget about them for a while, and we tend to lose the momentum, we lose the energy. So some key things in particular: gut level as well as head level engagement we need, so emotional as well as rational. We need the idea that, or the support that good ideas that we should incorporate in our change and our project could come from anywhere. And if we espouse this idea to the organization and tell people that we really believe this from the top down and bottom up, it encourages anyone and everyone to submit good ideas for the project, for the planning, for the implementation, and for continuous improvement. Next, people experience genuine opportunities for new big things to happen. We need to facilitate that, and we need to recognize it and reward it. People need to have their key personal concerns satisfied. So if someone asks for something, we need to recognize that they've asked for something or that they've contributed, and we need to get back to them with some type of feedback loop to show them that we're doing something about it. Even if doing something about it means we're not doing anything about it, they still need to know what we're doing, and we need that we've recognized them. And also there's this idea, psychology, or a philosophical idea or belief that people do have a thirst for learning. Now, not everybody has an extreme thirst for learning, but in general, I would say people do have an interest in learning new things if we frame it in the right way, if it's not overwhelming, and if we can reduce the anxiety of the learning process. Now, next, distributed leadership. Another key to success is taking leadership, an old school approach to leadership, which was top down, and now facilitating leadership at all levels. So people that aren't necessarily managers would still be expected to have a leadership role in the organization, in the sense that they're expected to contribute good ideas, they're expected to get involved, they're expected to help, they're expected to collaborate. We give them the authority, the ability to do that, and we recognize their involvement. So we're really encouraging everyone from the grassroots up to be involved in the leadership of our movement going forward, and we're giving people recognition for their involvement. Next, appropriate mobilization of resources. So the key here would be that we have a couple things in place. We have to have a plan that was good enough for us to determine the resources that we need. We have to then be able to draw on those resources throughout the project life cycle when we need them. So do you have the resources that you need when you need them? In addition to that, if you have brought in externals like consultants, we don't want to become over dependent upon them so that when they leave, our organization breaks, which often happens, especially if you look at some of the global SAP projects, for example. They bring in 500 SAP experts, and then when they leave, the project falls apart. So we need to create internal strength and competency and ability. People are eager to move forward based on common ground, so we have to facilitate that common ground. And we need constant communication on all levels. Push communication, interactive communication, forums for communication, SharePoint sites that facilitate communication, blogs, webinars, virtual cafes, all the above. Now, why is sustainability often so elusive? What are some of the reasons for this? Well, they probably aren't surprising to you. They're often the same things that we've seen, going back years on end. If you look at projects that have failed, why have they failed? And if we do our autopsies, we often find similar things. So lack of time, lack of money, ties to old ways of doing things. Perceived value of sustainability activities is not there. We have a lack of perceived value. Occasional sustainability afterthought, or what we would call homeostasis. People return to their old ways of doing things. We may have change management ignorance within the planning or the strategic planning within our organization, or people that are overconfident in their change management abilities. So either way, we have a lack of confidence, and our competence isn't what it should be, or we have confidence that's above our competence, and we're not able to actually do what we think we need to be able to do. So I just want to close off with a couple checklists, some things that we can take. Hopefully you can use these checklists and expand them back within the workplace to fit the context within which you work. And what the checklists focus on are 3 key areas of our project life cycle: the start of your project life cycle, the middle, and the end. And what can we do to ensure that our projects are sustainable long term? So at the beginning, we have a plan. We could check off each of these. We have a plan and we have a strategy in place, and we figured out how we're going to achieve it. We have a design that was developed early on as possible, maybe even going back to the business requirements for sustainability long term. We have purposely designed our initiative to have the energy it needs from beginning right through to the end. We're going to conduct risk analysis with key stakeholders, community stakeholders, all of the above, to assess all the things that could go wrong, that could hinder our project. So this shows due diligence. We're going to get people involved and engaged at all levels, internally and externally, make appropriate investment in long-term improvement, and evaluate systemic issues in the diagnosis and action planning stages. So a holistic approach as well. In the middle, designing opportunities for something new and entirely different to happen. So what are the exciting things that are going to keep people engaged and keep that momentum going and keep them contributing back to the project? We need meaningfully engaged people to increase the circle of participation. So how do we facilitate that? We need that ongoing. We need continuous reporting to everybody on all levels that is transparent. Now, when we say transparent, we obviously mean within the goals, policies, and procedures of the organization. We need conditions and training for direct communication, harnessing productive conflict. So the productive conflict, very important side there. Can you get people engaged, even people that have disparate ideas, even conflicting ideas, and somehow facilitate a healthy conversation so that the outcome is greater than what we would have come up with if we didn't work together. In addition to that, can you design a communication platform and some type of engagement that will bring all of these different stakeholders together and allow them to collaborate instead of compete with each other? And can you bring or use more tools than just large group methods for facilitation? So what often happens is we only have a couple different means of communicating with people. We bring together some large groups or do some surveys, and then we have our small project meetings, and that's it. But today there's no reason why we can't have a multitude of tools being used across the project life cycle. And lastly, coming near to the end of the project, or the end of our project life cycle, some mechanisms for follow-up. Do we have appropriate mechanisms, many of which today could be automated? We could be using our social media tools. We could be developing SharePoint sites and all the above. Establishing clear responsibilities, and in this case, not just for closeout, but clear responsibilities for the handoff or the transition to engage the operational side of our organization to keep the initiative going long term, make it truly sustainable. Do we have public commitment to responsibility areas? So do we have the public commitment, the public buy-in? So here we're talking about external commitment. We also want reinforcement, again, in moving forward. So we're not just going to end it and close off. And we need continual external and internal scanning to remain current. So do we have the ability to do that? Those feedback loops ongoing on all levels. And then lastly, we want to encourage ongoing learning processes and practices to sustain the momentum. So, and what do you do with all that information, and how do we make it available to people so that we can all benefit from it? Which brings me to the close of today's webinar. So I hope that, after going through all of those areas, that you'll be able to combine this in some way, shape, or form to now incorporate the community into your stakeholder plans, and as I said, apply a readiness for change assessment to your project, and hopefully incorporate all of these ideas into your project plans, your change management plans, and your sustainability plans and moving forward. Now with that said, we've come to the end of our session.